Good morning, my dear students. Hope all of you are doing fine. Today's class is on final part of case history. And in previous classes, you have been known about the clinical examination of the patient. That means how you need to take the case history, initial part about the medical history of the patient, dental history of the patient, whether past dental history, is there any past dental history, or routine dental examinations, intraoral examination, extraoral examination. All this has been covered in your previous classes. But today is the final part of your case history discussion, which is most important in orthodontic perspective. So what is that final part? Final part is nothing but your functional examination. So what is functional examination? You need to check all the functions of the stomatognathic system. So I will be covering in detail what is stomatognathic system and what are the functions that are performed by the stomatognathic system. The final part is your functional examination, where you need to examine all the functions performed in the stomatognathic system. So under this, these are the contents. So I am going to discuss the structures of stomatognathic system, clinical importance of functional analysis, and various diagnostic exercises to assess the functioning of the stomatognathic system, clinical implications of the functional analysis, and finally I will be concluding the topic. So functional analysis is a clinical assessment of various functions of the stomatognathic system to check for their normalcy. So you need to assess various functions of the stomatognathic system. So what are the various functions of stomatognathic system? So mastication, deglutition, respiration and speech are various functions of your stomatognathic system. So in this, the functional analysis is a clinical assessment. You need to clinically assess how the masticatory function of the patient. Deglutition is nothing but swallowing. Mastication is nothing but chewing of the food. The efficiency of chewing, the efficiency of mastication or deglutition, efficiency, how far the patient is respirating, is the respiration based. All these diagnostics are there. So we'll be discussing in detail through all these diagnostic parts. So then, structures of the stomatognathic system. Under these structures you have the jaws. These are the jaws, maxilla and mandible. As you are viewing, maxilla, mandible, your tongue and the musculature. Musculature is major part which contribute towards your stomatognathic system. As in initial stages, initial chapters in the growth, so your muscles are responsible for your bone growth. In the same way here, the muscles are main part, plays a key role in functioning of the stomatognathic structures like mastication, deglutition, speech. All these will be performed in coordination with your muscles, tongue and your jaws. So this is your remember, stomatognathic system is nothing but jaws, teeth, tongue and the musculature. And the functions of stomatognathic system, it may be asked as a 2-mark question. Mastication, deglutition, respiration and the speech are your functions of the stomatognathic system. So why is it important to go with functional analysis? What is the clinical importance of the functional analysis? It is to assess how the dysfunction contributes to creation or aggravation of a malocclusion. So how severity of the malocclusion, so to know the etiology. So if there is any muscle dysfunction, so there will be at that site the teeth will not be in a proper occlusion. So or if any jaw malfunction, all these TMJ abnormalities, any of the abnormality will contribute towards your functioning of the patient. So normal functions of the patient. It helps to assess the prognosis of the treatment. So if you know the functional analysis, if you do functional analysis better, the prognosis of the treatment will also be good, so that you are removing the etiology of the main cause of the malocclusion. So sometimes malocclusion may not be in particular due to the irregularly arranged teeth. It may be caused due to derangement in your jaws or due to derangement in your other musculature also. So it also helps in selecting the treatment modality. Suppose if your jaws are overgrown, if your maxilla is overgrown, you need to go with the surgery for better treatment of the patient. Or if the muscles are flaccid, you need to go with treatment of the flaccid musculature so that the treatment result will be good. And what are the various diagnostic exercises? You need to know various diagnostic exercises to know the functional analysis. First is the assessment of mandibular position as determined by the musculature. First you need to assess, the first step in functional analysis is to assess your mandibular position. So how you need to assess your mandibular position will be dealt in the next slides. Then is your examination of TMJ and mandibular movement, examination of tongue and its functions, examination of respiratory function, examination of lips, assessment of speech, analysis of smile. All this will be dealt. So first is your assessment of mandibular position. So what you need to assess? The mandibular postural rest position should be assessed whenever you are assessing the rest position. So interocclusal clearance, you need to evaluate the interocclusal clearance after positioning the patient in the patient's mandible in postural rest position. So evaluation of the path of closure from rest to occlusion in 3 planes, that is in sagittal, vertical and transverse plane. So please follow. So what is mandibular position? What is postural rest position? It is, postural rest position is a relatively unchanging neuromuscularly derived relationship of lower jaw to the upper. So in short, it is basically when you leave your mandible freely without any functions like mastication, deglutition. Suppose if you leave your mandible freely, then that itself is your postural rest position. That is very difficult to determine in the patient. So perform yourself as you are at home. Just close your eyes and see. First swallow and then observe your mandibular position. So wherever your mandible is positioned, that is the same position. It is said to be as a postural rest position. When you are sleeping or when you are at rest, your mandible is at that position. That is nothing but your unchanged neuromuscularly derived position. And it is the position of the mandible when the elevator and depressor muscles of the mandible are in a state of minimal tonic contraction. That means your elevator and depressor muscles will be in a relaxed state. So how you need to determine the postural rest position when coming to the patient? This is more important. So when you need to do a tapping test initially. So what is tapping test? You need to hold the mandible, patient's mandible with your thumb and the index finger, and you need to just move the mandible so that patient will loosen his mandible in a free position. When the mandible is in postural rest position, it is usually 2 to 3 mm below and behind the centric occlusion. Okay, what is centric occlusion then? So when you clench your teeth tightly, your mandible is posterior superior position. The condyle is at the posterior superior region. So it will be here. See, observe here. Whenever you close your mandible, your condyle will be at the posterior superior position of the glenoid fossa. That is nothing but your centric occlusion. So tight contacts, and then when you are tightly occluding, that will be your centric gradation. Now mandibular rest position, it is 2 to 3 mm below and behind the centric occlusion. So whenever your mandible is at rest, it is also 2 to 3 mm below and behind your centric occlusion. Then what is freeway space? So whenever your mandible is at rest position, there will be gap between your upper and lower teeth. So your maxillary and mandibular teeth, that is nothing but your freeway space. So when you leave your mandible freely. So swallow, take a gulp of water and observe your mandible. So there will be gap between your maxillary and mandibular teeth. So that space between your maxillary and mandibular teeth, when your mandible is at postural rest position, is nothing but your freeway space. So see here, the freeway space between the teeth when the mandible is at rest is referred to as the space between the teeth when the mandible is at rest is referred to as freeway space or interocclusal clearance. So how you need to see this freeway space? You can see like this. Intraorally, you can just visualize, you can elevate the lips of the patient, both upper and lower lips, and then slowly you need to elevate, and then you can check the gap between your teeth. Where you can measure this freeway space in the canine region or at the incisor region. You can take a divider and you can see the gap between upper and lower teeth. Initially you need to see the gap, and then after mandible is at postural rest position, you need to see the gap. So the difference is nothing but freeway space, and exactly you cannot measure intraorally the freeway space. The best method to measure the freeway space is your extraoral method. So that way I will be dealing in the next slides. Methods to bring the mandible in postural rest position. So like I was saying, how to bring the mandible in postural rest position. In the previous slides I have repeatedly saying practice swallowing and then observe the mandibular position. There are some methods to bring your mandible to the postural rest position. So these are command methods, non-command method, and a combined method. Under command method you have a phonetic method. So what is a command method? You need to command the patient by asking the patient to say some words like M. Okay, constantly you need to ask the patient to pronounce M. And then suddenly you ask the patient to stop pronouncing that letter. Then what you need to observe, suddenly when you ask the patient to stop pronouncing the letter M, the patient mandible will take rest and it will be holding in that postural rest position. So non-command methods, so you can just go with non-command methods also. You need to observe the patient while patient is swallowing or talking to you, and then you need to suddenly ask the patient to stop talking with you, and then you need to observe. Then you can follow the combined methods. Then the second part is here postural rest position. In previous slide I was saying you about, you need to take a divider and then you need to measure the gap between the upper and lower incisors, and in this you need to go with registration of the postural rest position, that is in the direct intraoral method, but that is in measuring in canine region. In previous slide I have been saying you need to take a divider and then you need to measure the gap between the canines, so maxillary and mandibular canines, not between your upper and maxillary and mandibular canine only you need to measure, not in the same arch, same jaw. You need to go with the opposite arches, maxillary canine to the mandibular canine. Direct extraoral methods. How you can do direct extraoral methods? You can just keep a marking at the extraoral region at the nose and the chin. So think this as an extraoral picture. You can mark here at the nose and the chin. Initially when the patient is at centric occlusion, you need to measure the height between the nose and the chin. Suppose if you measure it as suppose 40 millimeters, consider it as a 40 millimeters. Then after asking the patient, after asking the patient to say M, then again the gap will be there and the mandible will get to the postural rest position. Again you need to measure the gap. Then suppose if you think before it is 45 and after you are asking the patient to keep the mandible in postural rest position, the value may be increased to 48. So that means there is a variation of 3 degrees, that is 3 mm. So that 3 mm is nothing but your freeway space, the gap between your upper and lower teeth, and that is freeway. Normally the freeway space is 2 to 3 mm. And the third one is your indirect extraoral method. So that is indirect extraoral methods. You need to take the radiograph. You can take 2 radiographs before and after centric occlusion and postural rest position. You can measure the values. So that is most accurate one. And you can also use this kinesiographic registration method. You have a measurements here. This is kinesiograph, and then you need to ask the patient, you can take the radiance in this kinesial graph. So that is something about postural rest position. So postural rest position you need to assess. So this can be asked as a 4 marks question for you in prosthodontics as well as in orthodontics. Methods of mandibular postural rest position. Command method, that means you need to ask the patient to pronounce letter M. Non-command methods, you need to observe the mandibular movements. Combined method, you can just follow here both command and non-command methods. And this is registration of postural rest position, that is by direct intraoral method, direct extraoral method, that is you can mark the points in nose and chin and you can take before and after readings. So in direct extraoral method, that you need to take the radiograph before radiograph is taken in centric occlusion and after radiograph is taken at the postural rest position, and then you can measure the vertical height of the patient. Then evaluation of path of closure from postural rest to the occlusion in vertical plane. So you need to evaluate the path of closure. This is path of closure. You need to ask the patient to open and close. You need to observe opening and closing movements of the mandible. So while there is closing movement, you need to observe in which direction your mandible is closing. So see here, it is a true deep bite. So you can see, you can visualize there is a, so here both your posteriors and anteriors are in same line in the mandible, both are in same line, but when the patient is closed, there is over closure of the mandible. That is, this is called a skeletal deep bite. Whenever there is a horizontal growing patient, so there will be over closure of the mandible, thereby causing the deep bite. That is called as a true deep bite. Pseudo deep bite may be due to your masking of the teeth, due to your over eruption of your anteriors. So upper and lower anteriors may be over erupted, and then that may be erupted as considered as a pseudo deep bite. So differences between true deep bite, true overbite and a pseudo deep bite. This is also a very important. Infra-occlusion of the molars will be seen in the true deep bite. There will be large freeway space. And the prognosis for successful therapy with functional method is favorable in this type of true bite. And pseudo deep bite, molars are fully erupted. Over eruption of the incisors are seen. Like I was saying, incisors will be over erupted, and the prognosis of functional appliances will be unfavorable in pseudo deep bite. Observe this. Evaluation of path of closure from postural rest to the occlusion in sagittal plane. So you need to observe the path of closure in a sagittal plane. You need to observe this. This is normal closure of your mandible. In the next slide, see the path of closure. In this direction, up to certain extent it is closing smoothly, and in some cases it is going backward. So in a true deep bite or in a deep bite cases, or in class 2 div 1 cases or class 2 division 2 cases. So suppose if your upper incisors are retroclined and there is closure of your mandible, sometimes it smoothly rotates to incisors, and after that there will be obstruction at the incisor region, then mandible itself sets back and then positions backwards in case of class 2 division 2 malocclusions. See here, in case of class 3 malocclusions, your mandible will rotate upwards to certain extent and it glides forwards in a class 3 malocclusion. You need to observe this. So this is mandible. So if you observe the arrow cursor moving here, the mandible will move like this up to certain extent, and then after that your mandible will move forwards because of the obstruction at the incisor region in a class 3 cases, whereas in class 2 cases you have smooth movement up to certain extent and your mandible will jump backwards. What is clinical implications of postural rest position? In a class 2 malocclusion, if postural rest position of the mandible is anterior to the habitual occlusal position, and if a large freeway space, mandibular overclosure and deep bite are present, then the prognosis will be good. The treatment prognosis with the functional appliances will be good if there is a large freeway space and mandibular overclosure. That means whenever you are advancing the mandible, you can use that freeway space and then you can jump the bite. In a class 3 malocclusion, the postal rest position, if anterior, a true class 3 malocclusion has occurred, so that will give you a poor prognosis. So in a class 3, obviously your functional appliances will be less preferable. In open bite malocclusion, functional appliances are likely to be successful in cases with primary dysfunction and average growth pattern. These are, and you need to observe this. So lateroocclusion and laterognathia, these are the two terminology you need to observe at the closing position of the mandible. Evaluation of path of closure from postal rest to the habitual occlusion in the transverse plane. That's transverse in the sense sidewise movements of the mandible. So you can just check upward closing movements, and then you can move your mandible laterally from canine to canine. Just observe, you can just glide your mandible laterally. So whenever you gliding the mandible, your mandible will be shifted from one side to the other. In lateroocclusion, in some cases what will happen, the midlines are aligned in rest position. See the midline. So whenever think this as a mandible, and you need to imagine the sidewise movements of the mandible. In lateroocclusion, midlines are aligned in the rest position. Whenever you ask the patient at the postal rest position, then the midlines will be aligned. So shift occurs in occlusal position. Deviation is due to the tooth guidance. So whenever the patient is in, ask the patient to occlude, there will be a shift. So at the rest position, there will not be shift. Both your maxillary midline and mandibular midline will be coinciding. But at the occlusal position, your maxillary midline will be at one point and your mandibular midline will be at point. That is due to your tooth guidance. So that is nothing but your lateroocclusion. And you have a laterognathy. So whole of your dental and skeletal midline don't coincide at rest and in occlusion. Both at rest and in occlusion, your dental midlines will not be coincide. It is completely a skeletal abnormality, and this may be a dental abnormality. So only because of anterior crowding, see here, observe, there will be anterior crowding. At occlusion it will not be coinciding, but at rest, when you keep the mandible at rest, it will be coinciding. And see this image. So this is a clear example of your laterognathy. Both the maxillary and midline and mandibular midline are shifted, and while at postal rest position and occlusion, both will be, the midlines will not coincide at both points. So examination of TMJ and mandibular movements. Next part is your examination of TMJ. So you can just go through this examination of TMJ, as I will just brief it because this will be dealt in your oral medicine. So what is the clinical significance, malocclusion and TMJ dysfunction symptoms and its examination. So why it is most important, so why you need to examine the TMJ. Acute muscle disorders are the most common symptoms of TMJ disorder. Spasm of inferior lateral pterygoid causes this muscle to contract, resulting in disocclusion of posterior teeth on the same side and premature contact of anterior teeth on the opposite side. Joint sounds, there will be joint sounds whenever there is pathology in the temporomandibular joint, that is clicking and crepitation. So clicking is nothing but single joint sound of short duration, and if it is loud, it is referred to as a pop sound, and crepitation, rough gravel like sound, described as a grating. Like clicking is tuck tuck. You can just hear a tuck like sound whenever patient is opening, you can just hear tuck. Crepiting is like sound. You can not just hear only one sound, you can just hear a constant sound. When auscultation is carried out with a stethoscope, clicking and crepitus in the joint may be diagnosed due to anterior, posterior and eccentric movements of the mandible. So whenever you auscultate, there will be a normal clicking sounds. Whenever you see with stethoscope, you can just observe all these movements. So initial clicking, it is a sign of retruded condyle. So these are various clicking sounds and the normal clicking sounds. Initial clicking sound, it is sign of retruded condyle. Intermediate clicking is a sign of unevenness of the condylar surfaces and the articular disc. See here. So this is fossa. This is the condyle and this is the disc. So whenever you open the mandible, so there will be a gliding movement of the condyle as well as gliding movement of the disc also. Whenever there is a disc problem, there will be arthritis. So patient will be complaining of pain. Suppose think if there is no cushion here, completely the disc is deranged. So what will happen? Both their bony surfaces will be contacting, and then there will be the patient will be exhibiting pain, or in some cases anterior disc displacement. Here disc will be displaced anteriorly or posteriorly. So then whenever patient is opening or closing, whenever patient want to open or close the mouth, so if it is anteriorly or posterior displaced, so then there will be abnormality in the patient's opening and closing movements, and you can hear the sounds. And intermediate is the sign of unevenness of the condylar surfaces and the articular disc. Terminal clicking, it is an effect of condyle being moved too far anteriorly in relation to the disc or maximum jaw opening. And you can see the reciprocal click, it is an expression of incoordination between the displacement of the condyle and the disc. Okay, in this movement there should be smooth movement between your condyle and the disc. Whenever you are opening, there will be smooth movement of the disc. If the disc and the condyle are not smooth, then obviously there will be clicking sound. So just see the examination of TMJ and the lateral palpation of your TMJ. You need to just palpate the TMJ. You need to keep your index fingers both on behind, anterior to the external auditory meatus. You can press you can just see the picture, and then you can just palpate your with your fingers anterior to the external auditory meatus. You can just feel the fossa there. Then you need to ask the patient, just you can also try, you can open your mandible and then you can just feel the movement of the condyle there. And you can also just keep your little fingers in the external auditory meatus, and you can also just try opening and closing the mandible, and you can feel the sounds. So temporalis muscle, here it will be the temporalis muscle. So here will be the attachment of the temporalis muscle, and the anterior region is palpated above the zygomatic arch. So this is zygomatic arch. So here you have a zygomatic arch, and then above the zygomatic arch you need to palpate like this. So and then ask the patient to open and close. You need to check the activity, and you need to compare both the right and left sides of the activity of retropterygoid temporalis, both right and left sides. So palpation of anterior and posterior temporalis muscle. So you need to palpate like this. Just see the pictures. Middle region is palpated directly above the TMJ and superior to the zygomatic arch. So medial pterygoid, it is palpated at their insertions on the medial surfaces of the mandibular angles. So see here, the fingertips are placed at the inferior borders of the mandible and lightly rolled medially and superiorly. In the inside you need to keep the medial surface, and then you need to palpate the medial pterygoid muscle. So this is masseter. So you can just plunge and then you can just hold at these sides. You can feel the masseter muscle. The fingers are placed on the zygomatic arches here, this anterior to the TMJ. They are then dropped down slightly to the portion of the masseter attached. Here at this part you need to check. Just crunch your teeth and then just you can check the masseter. And to the zygomatic arches, just anterior to the joint. See the lateral pterygoid. So you can see, you can just check the lateral pterygoid just posterior to the last erupted teeth. And you need to check the maximum incisal distance. Okay, you need to ask the patient to open wide, and then you can just measure at the incisors region how many millimeters it is there. Normal range of mandibular opening when measured interincisally is between 53 to 58 millimeters, and the patient is asked to open slowly until pain is first felt. And this is maximum comfortable opening. Okay, and you can also measure with vernier calipers or a divider, or you can just keep your 4 fingers. Normally you need to ask the patient to keep their 4 fingers. So if the 4 fingers are inserted, then that is said to be normal mouth opening of the patient. So this, you can check the maximum mouth opening. These are checking of the lateral movements of the, see, you need to ask the patient to move the side, and then you need to check the lateral movements of the mandible also. The patient is next asked to open maximally, and this is recorded as maximum opening. Opening less than 40 millimeters and is said to be restricted. Like I was saying, lateral protrusive movements, any lateral movement less than 8 mm is recorded as restricted movement. From here 8, okay, from center point you can just measure, and that is less than, when it is less than 8 mm, it is said to be a restricted movement. Now we will go to the diagnosis of the tongue and its functions, examination of tongue and its functions. So what examinations you can do? You can evaluate the size of the tongue, shape of the tongue, and posture of the tongue, and you can also evaluate the swallowing function, and you are also having cephalometric analysis of the tongue. So this is a palatographic method. So what is palatographic method? You can just stain the tongue with dye, and then you need to see the impressions. So the pressure which is felt on the palatal rooting. So you can just see the dye, the impression on the maxillary arch at the palatal surface, and you can just visualize how much pressure the tongue is having, and then indentations on the tongue all will be measured with the palatographic method. So tongue posture, how you need to examine the tongue posture, cephalometric analysis. Use of radio opaque coating such as barium paste on the tongue enhances visualization. So whenever you apply a barium paste, you can visualize tongue, and then you need to measure like this. So this is cephalometric analysis. You need to trace and you need to draw these lines. You can just measure how elevated the tongue will be. So in some patients tongue will be flaccid, and in some macroglossia patients the tongue cannot accommodate in this space and it will fully occupy this space. See, in class 2 division 1 patients, so there will be more, it has occupied more space. So as there will be less space in the mouth in a class 2 division 1 patient, so the tongue is flaccid, so there will be, see the difference here. So in a class 3 case, as your lower mandible is very much prognathing, the tongue will fall into the lower mandible and it will be very flaccid. Evaluation of tongue in function, that is swallowing. So swallowing is examined in this manner. So you need to ask the patient to sit upright in Frankfurt horizontal plane position. That is, your Frankfurt horizontal plane should be parallel to the floor. So what is Frankfurt horizontal plane? Like I was saying in previous classes, the line between the external auditory meatus and the orbital line. So it is observed unnoticed several unconscious swallows. You need to observe when the patient is swallowing. You need to ask the patient to sip the water and then also observe the swallowing pattern of the patient. So you can just elevate the lips, and then you need to observe the tongue, where the position of the tongue when the patient is swallowing. So just you need to elevate the lips with your finger, and then you can observe when the patient is swallowing. So a tongue depressor or a mouth mirror is placed on the lower lip to hold it tightly while the patient is asked to swallow. Unconscious swallow may be examined more specially as follows. Some water is placed in patient's mouth and a hand on the temporal muscle. The patient is asked to swallow for the last time. So this is normal swallow, normal infantile swallow. So just see the picture here, normal infantile swallow. Whenever patient is swallowing, your tongue will be placed between the lips. So the lip seal will be placed for the tongue, and the pressure will be, negative pressure will be created for the swallowing of the patient. So this is normal mature swallow. See this picture, see the previous picture. Your tongue is placed between your lips. So this is the major difference, and the negative seal will be formed. So it is crossing the gum pads. These are the gum pads, and it is crossing the gum pads, and the tongue is placed between the lips. See here, after the eruption of the permanent teeth or deciduous teeth also, constantly a tongue will be positioned at the posterior to your upper incisors. And retained infantile swallow. Sometimes in some patients you need to observe retained infantile swallow. What is retained infantile swallow? That is persistence of infantile swallow even after eruption of the permanent teeth. So after eruption of permanent teeth also, some patients will be placing their tongue between the lips, and then they will be trying to swallow. And tongue thrust strongly between the teeth on all sides. So that is called as tongue thrust. When the patient is keeping his tongue between the lips and then trying to swallow after the eruption of permanent teeth or deciduous teeth also, then that is called as retained infantile swallow or tongue thrust. And strong contraction of lip and facial muscles, inexpressive face, low gag threshold, and occlude only on the one molar in each quadrant. The prognosis for conditioning such as a primitive reflex is very poor in such type of patients. So these are, what are the abnormal tongue habits? These are some of the abnormal tongue habits. This is a simple tongue thrust. So see here, it is crossing, the tongue is placed between the teeth. So complex tongue thrust. So the your tongue will be occupying whole of the position of your teeth from anterior to posterior position. So this is the difference between simple tongue thrust and a complex tongue thrust. See the effects of tongue thrusting habit, thumb sucking habit in this picture. So the pressure, see this arrow mark indicates where pressure is falling. Incisors will be proclined, lower incisors will be intruded and retracted, and there will be narrowing of the upper arch. Clinical significance of abnormal swallowing. So why you need to check for abnormal swallowing? Due to simple tongue thrust, complex tongue thrust, and the retained infantile swallow. I have told you about simple and complex tongue thrust. Next is retained infantile swallow is a primitive reflex and corrections is difficult. It will have a poor prognosis. So examination of respiratory function. So next is your respiratory function. So how you need to check the respiratory function? So respiratory function, if there is any altered respiratory function, you will have an adenoid facies. Adenoid facies in the sense patient will be having an expressionless face, long face, because of the he will be having a constricted nostrils. So you need to check the nostrils also. So how you need to examine? So mouth breathers do not change the shape or size of the external nares and occasionally contract the nasal orifices on inspiration. So whenever you are taking air through your nose, there will be contraction and flaring of your nares, whereas in mouth breathers you can just expect that it is obvious that the nose movement will be less. Even nasal breathers with temporary nasal congestion will demonstrate reflex alarm nasal contractions and dilatation of nares during voluntary inspiration. So you can also go with the mirror test. So just you can keep mouth mirrors at the nares and you can check the fogging. So whenever there is, you can just ask the patient to take the air and then you can check the fogging. So if the patient is a mouth breather. If he is breathing through the mouth, there won't be fogging. If he is breathing through the nose, there will be fogging of the mirrors. So cotton test. So if you ask, just keep a butterfly shaped cotton here. So this is more important. Mirror test and cotton test. This will be asked as 2 marks questions for you. And this, so whenever patient is asked to take the air, so whenever patient is taking air through the nose, this cotton will be flipped to the nose side. So or if he is taking through the mouth, so the cotton will not be flipped. So examination of the lips. So you need to also examine lips. So this has been already covered in your previous classes, and you need to observe the lip dysfunctions. So lip dysfunctions, competent lips. So these are competent lips, closed lips, upper and lower lips. There is no gap between upper and lower teeth. These are incompetent lips. There is a gap between upper and lower lips. Those are nothing but your incompetent lips. Potentially competent lips. Potentially competent. These are closed, but the patient is potentially forcefully closing the lips. So in this, where this scenario will be in case of proclaimed incisors. So whenever there are more proclamation of incisors, you can see potentially competent lips. So everted lips. In some cases, in class 2 division 1 cases, if there is retrognathic mandible, there will be overclosure of the mandible and there will be everted lips. These are hypertrophied lip with redundant tissue but weak muscular tonicity. Okay, hypertrophied with weak muscular tonicity. So assessment of speech. How you need to assess the speech? You need to assess the speech by asking the patient to pronounce letters like from 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, or you can just ask the patient to pronounce A, B, C, D, all those things. And you have different types of sounds like velopharyngeal, labiodental, linguodental and linguoalveolar sounds. So these are buccal from the bilabial sounds that are from the lips. P, B, you can try this. P, B, W, M, all these are bilabial sounds. Both the lips will come into contact. Labiodental sounds, upper teeth and the lower lip, F and V. Linguodental, the tongue tip and the upper teeth. Tongue tip will be touching the upper teeth to pronounce that language. Linguoalveolar, T and D. Linguovelopharyngeal. So you can just K, G, all these things. You can just try pronouncing these words and then you can observe which parts are touching. So glottal sound from the glottis, H. See various tongue posture during various speech articulation. You can just see K, C. So while pronouncing letter K, see your tongue is here contacting the posterior part of the maxilla. M. So here you can just, both your upper and lower lips are touching. So FV, just observe this picture. S sound. S. Here the air is escaping through this S sound. So whenever there is midline diastema, S sound will be pronounced difficultly. Okay. So all these speech sound. So this is important. So S and Z sibilants, these are all sibilants, and the problem is this. It is caused with anterior open bite and there is large gap between the incisors. T and D, linguodental, dental sound, difficulty in production, irregular incisors, especially lingual position of the maxillary incisors. Okay. So FMB, labiodental, fricative, distortion, that is in case of skeletal class 3 individuals. So in skeletal class 3 cases, there will be difficulty in FMB. So P, B and M. Difficulty in production in case of class 2 division 1, the ESH, CH, distortion will be seen in case of anterior open. So if you observe this, you can just improve the speech in malocclusion patients also. So finally, the analysis of smile. I am not going much detail. The analysis of smile, it is a vast subject, but for your interest, I am just covering the analysis of smile. A pleased or amused expression of face formed by curling of the mouth upward is nothing but a smile. You can just observe from Ackerman components of smile have a gingival scaffold. See here you can see some amount of gingiva and the patient is smiling. Teeth, so upper and lower lips. In a useful Morley ratio, in a useful smile, 75 to 100% of maxillary central incisors should be positioned below an imaginary line drawn between the commissus. Okay? We can draw a line and 75 to 100% of maxillary central incisor should be positioned. So that is said to be as a aesthetic smile, or you can, if gingiva is more exposed, then it is said to be a gingival smile. And this is consonant or ideal smile arc. So see this consonant or ideal smile arc. Maxillary incisor edge curve is a parallel to the curvature of the lower lip upon smiling. So whenever patient is smiling, so all the teeth will be coinciding the lower lip. Non-consonant or flat smile arc. Maxillary incisal curvature is flatter than the curvature of the lower lip on smile. So this is a flat smile arc. So smile in various malocclusions. Flat smile arc is seen in vertical maxillary deficiency and thumb sucking habit, and gingival smile line, vertical maxillary excess. So whenever there is more gingival exposure, you can just say it as vertical maxillary excess, and in class 2 malocclusions also. So finally, functional examination evaluates how dysfunction contributes to creation or aggravation of the malocclusion. So you need to assess, and then you can just say what is the main etiological factor for the malocclusion, to assess the prognosis of the treatment. And all functional problems cannot be corrected, hence selecting the treatment modality is of a great importance. So if you know the actual problem, so you can just go with the treatment much better. So you need to know all the details about the functional analysis. So thank you for your patient hearing. And finally, before I conclude, before I close this, so today I have summarized in detail about the functional analysis, the components of functional stomatognathing system, the teeth, muscles, tongue, jaws, and the functions of the stomatognathing system. So and the diagnosis of all the functions of the stomatognathing system. Okay. And this, the most important thing in your final year examinations is assessment of postal rest position. What is freeway space? Examination of TMJ will also be asked in your, mostly it will not be asked in your orthodontic papers, it will be asked in your oral medicine and other departments. So competency of the lips will be asked as a 2 marks question, and TMJ examination will also be asked as 4 marks, or sometimes it may be asked also as essay also. Thank you for your patient hearing. Have a good day. And just please revise all this functional examination so that it will be easy. Just go through your postal rest position, command method, non-command method, all these things. Just go through your textbook that is given in your textbooks.